Welcome everyone, this is Honest Restart, and this time we're talking about what's to come next for the Pokemon series after the Crown Tundra DLC. So the Crown Tundra DLC was just shown off again, we got more information about it. It's the final pack for Sword and Shield. They're even coming out with a full version of Sword and Shield that includes the DLC in early November, and that seems to be the big news for Pokemon, the big releases for Pokemon for the rest of 2020. So what's coming in 2021? Well, this February is the 25th anniversary for Pokemon, and as far as anniversaries go, I would say the 25th anniversary is one of the bigger ones, and Pokemon always has games and announcements to make every single year. They seem to love celebrating their history and their anniversaries all the time, so the big one like this 25th anniversary, maybe something big is also on the horizon. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now before we jump into things, I want to quickly talk about my social media. There is a Twitter page, a Discord community, a Patreon page, and a Twitch channel. If you are interested in any of that, it's all linked in the description below, and of course if you like what you're seeing here, subscribe. Now before I dive headfirst into all of this speculation about what's to come in 2021 for Pokemon, I first want to talk a little bit about this DLC because I feel like it's important because it is suggestive of where Game Freak is taking the series moving forward. So with the DLC, with the Isle of Armor, and now with what we're getting with Crown Tundra, I definitely like it. I definitely was excited to hear that they were going to be doing DLC this year as opposed to just creating like an Ultra Sword and Shield where it's basically the same game but like with a remix story and some new content. I think this is a better way to go about it. Definitely a good deal. If you haven't played Pokemon yet and you want to get the Sword and Shield with all of the DLC content, you can do that, and I guess that can function as the other version for this year. But then, if you already had the game, you just get the DLC, and I feel like this DLC content is more of an expansion to the generation as opposed to what an Emerald or a Diamond would have been for their previous generations. I think this is a little bit of a bigger deal. And looking at the gameplay we've seen from Isle of Armor and what may be being hinted at with Crown Tundra, the games have become more open. It looks like they're definitely going forward with the wild area idea and making them seem more like modern games as opposed to old, held-back, handheld Pokemon games. They're definitely moving forward here, and that's exciting. For most Nintendo handhelds, there's usually two Pokemon generations, and that first generation tends to be the less advanced generation, and they make a significant jump with that second generation. So, seeing the advances that Game Freak is making with the Pokemon series, just with the DLC that followed up the original release for this generation on Switch, definitely, I think, is reassuring of better games in the future. And it's not to say I didn't like Sword and Shield, but there definitely is a lot more that can be improved upon. And even with the Crown Tundra, rumor has it that the map will be even larger and there'll be even more to explore and do. And we've even seen some of the Galarian legendary birds flying around, almost as if they may be roaming flying birds, which could be really cool, but that's just speculation at this point. The point is, it does look like Game Freak is pushing forward with the wild area gameplay and making these worlds bigger and better, and that's exciting. That says a lot about the future of Pokemon, I think. So with that in mind, what does that suggest for the next big Pokemon game? When is that going to happen? Well, in my opinion, that next big Pokemon game is probably coming out next year. Game Freak and Pokemon Company release a Pokemon game pretty much every single year. There rarely are breaks, and I feel like 2020 was probably that break if we were going to be getting one. They had the DLC, which doesn't take as much work as developing a whole game. There's less R&D that goes into that, less resources that goes into that, and that makes it easier to get content out there without diverting a whole bunch of resources to making a whole other game. So because of that, I feel like Game Freak has had a little bit more time and resources to use on the next big Pokemon game, which could be coming out in 2021 towards the holidays as they usually come out. I think that makes sense. That's sort of what I'm expecting, actually. And I wouldn't even be surprised if the next big Pokemon game comes out next October. Now, usually, the big Pokemon games, or at least in the last handful of years, have been coming out in November. But the difference now is that Pokemon games are on the Nintendo Switch, where there are other big Nintendo games coming out around that time. The Crown Tundra DLC is coming out this October, but Nintendo's big holiday game for this year, even though it's a bit of a slow year, is Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. That's coming out this November. So it may be the case moving forward that now Nintendo's going to be putting a bigger game to come out, say like a Zelda or Super Mario, in the November time slot like they usually do with their home consoles, and the Pokemon games will be coming out around the October time. That's a possibility. Of course, we don't know for sure when the game will actually come out. It's just really a month difference. They may sort of change around when those games will come out depending on the circumstances and the marketing and such, so I don't really think the difference of a month or two makes a big deal, but point is, the next big Pokemon game probably will come out next year towards the holidays. That makes a lot of sense. That's what I'm sort of expecting. But some people may be arguing that new Pokemon Snap is on the way. Why can't that be the big 2021 Pokemon game? Well, the thing is that that's not being developed by Game Freak. Game Freak usually releases a Pokemon game every single year, a mainline Pokemon game, and these mainline Pokemon games are closely tied to the marketing, to the merchandising, to the anime, to all these different things, so they kind of need to keep it going forward all the time. There always needs to be more new Pokemon content to push everything else forward. So that's going to be the case regardless, but just because there's a mainline Pokemon game coming out in that year, that doesn't mean there won't be other types of Pokemon content. As I've already alluded to, there's a whole bunch of Pokemon games that come out every single year. It's not just one big thing. There are usually several spin-offs. Next year, I feel like, is definitely the time for a new Pokemon Snap. But when exactly could we be seeing it? Some people were even hoping that it could come out this year, but given that it was shown to us in the summer, and when they showed us this trailer, it just said under construction, basically in development. If they were to show it that late into the year without some sort of release date, I feel like that's definitely indicative that the game is not coming out in the same year, so that's why I'm thinking 2021 is a time new Pokemon Snap will come out. Usually when Pokemon Company makes announcements for their games, they don't take that much longer to come out, so I don't think the game is that far away. And the 25th anniversary for Pokemon is right around the corner. So it wouldn't shock me if maybe this game comes out around then. They usually like to have some sort of Pokemon spin-off come out early in the year, so maybe that's new Pokemon Snap. Maybe it comes out in January, maybe it comes out in February in time for the anniversary. That's a possibility. But also I'm expecting some sort of Pokemon Direct around the Pokemon 25th anniversary. As already mentioned, Pokemon Company loves to celebrate the anniversary in history for Pokemon, so they're not going to ignore the 25th anniversary. They're definitely going to be doing something about this. So I'm definitely thinking there will be some sort of Pokemon presentation by the Pokemon anniversary where they will talk about new Pokemon Snap. Maybe it doesn't come out in January or February, maybe it comes out a little bit later into the year, but definitely that will be talked about. We'll get more details on it by that point, and they will probably also make some sort of announcement for the next big Pokemon game from Game Freak that I think will probably be coming out in the holidays for 2021. But what kind of game is that going to be? Is it going to be the next generation? Is it going to be Pokemon Let's Go Johto? Is it going to be Sinnoh Remakes? What is it going to be? Well, I don't think it's going to be the next generation because that would be too soon. For the most part, it seems like we get a new generation for Pokemon every 3 years. So Sword and Shield came out in 2019 and we've gone to DLC for 2020. We're going to get something else in 2021 before we can start talking about the next generation of Pokemon. So if it's not a next generation game, what else could it be? Well, another possibility that we have not talked about yet is a sequel to Sword and Shield. I think that could be in the cards. There have been things with the story or with the different characters in it that talk about what they want to do into the future. It could be a hint towards a sequel story sometime in the future. It's also possible that the DLC we're getting will handle most of that character development that's being hinted at with Sword and Shield. And even if that isn't the case, we should also take into consideration that just because they hint at something, quote unquote, that doesn't mean they will do anything with it. We've seen things in the past where it seemed like they were hinting at something and nothing happened, like the train station in Sword and Shield. So definitely I wouldn't assume for sure that they're going to be doing something with the characters in Sword and Shield moving forward, but they might. Some people have been arguing that we've been getting a lot of Diamond and Pearl Pokemon with the Crown Tundra DLC, but not the starters. So maybe that's a hint that we're going to be getting updates to the Sinnoh starters in Sinnoh Remakes in 2021. That might be a possibility. I could see that maybe happening, but I feel like it's also worth noting that those aren't the only starters that haven't been brought into Sword and Shield. There's a whole bunch of other Pokemon that still haven't been brought in yet, and I feel like by the end of this generation, they're going to want to have all the Pokemon already in it. Even though they're bringing in a whole bunch of new Pokemon for Crown Tundra, and they brought in a whole bunch for Isle of Armor, there's still a few hundred Pokemon left that aren't in the new generation for Pokemon yet, so they're probably going to want to bring in most of those Pokemon, if not all of them, by the time the generation is over, in my opinion, especially if it's during the 25th anniversary year for Pokemon. I think they're going to want to have everything available by that point. So I'm thinking that whatever comes out, they will celebrate this anniversary for Pokemon with all the Pokemon being available, and maybe that's in a Sinnoh remake. That's a possibility. They could expand it, give it new content where there's more Pokemon in there, and they bring in all the starters. That's possible. But as I already mentioned, the Sinnoh starters aren't the only starters missing. Maybe they bring in all these Pokemon in a different kind of game, not Sinnoh Remakes, but maybe Let's Go Johto. Maybe we could get the Gen 2 starters and they bring in the other Pokemon as well. And neither Game Freak or Pokemon Company have discounted the idea of another Let's Go game coming later down the road. They're definitely still pushing the Go sort of marketing and branding here with Pokemon Let's Go and Pokemon Go. So I feel like there's definitely a strong possibility that Let's Go Johto could be in the cards. Before we conclude things, there's another angle I feel like we should address. So earlier in the video I was talking about how if you take a look at the DLC for Sword and Shield, you can see that Game Freak is moving forward with the wild area idea. They are expanding upon that. I think it's reasonable to expect that we will see improvements for this and that future Pokemon games will use more wild areas and that will be more deeply integrated with the entire gameplay. But when we start talking about remakes for the next Pokemon game, then I'm not entirely sure. So when the next generation of Pokemon comes around, absolutely, there will be a whole bunch of wild area component to those games, maybe entirely wild area, kind of like the DLC, perhaps even beyond that. But if we're going to be getting either Sinnoh Remakes or Let's Go Johto next year, would they go as far as making these games wild area? They wouldn't really be remakes at that point, they would be reimaginings because they would be changing around the actual structure of the game as opposed to some minor enhancements here and there. So that's where I'm not entirely sure what's going to be happening here. If it's a Sword and Shield sequel that we get next year, then hey, the game's already in wild area. If they expand upon that more so, that's not crazy. But, you know, I'll also say that given with all the DLC and all of that, maybe the Sword and Shield sequel is the least likely of the three, and Let's Go is a very popular series, so I could see them doing that. And also Sinnoh Remakes have been something that fans have been wanting for a very long time. And I guess the interesting thing about this is that if they go with Sinnoh Remakes or if they go with Let's Go Johto, my expectation wouldn't be that they would be redesigned to have wild areas. I would love it, but I don't expect it, especially for Let's Go. Let's Go would basically just be what Let's Go Kanto was with Pikachu and Eevee. It was basically just putting the original maps in pseudo 3D. Like, it was 3D, but, you know, it still was moving along the same plane, basically. If it's Sinnoh Remakes, though, I think there's some potential that they could explore wild areas a little bit more. Maybe they could take certain parts of Sinnoh and make those wild area, but still overall keep the general sense of the map. I think that can maybe happen, but I think that's like a best case scenario here. I feel like this would give Game Freak and Pokemon Company an avenue or an excuse, quote unquote, to just have more of a minimalist remake and not completely change around the components of the game and the structure of the world and save that for the next generation game. That's also something to consider here. At this point, I'm not really sure where I should put down my predictions, if it should be for a Let's Go Johto, or for a Sinnoh Remake, or for a Sword and Shield sequel. I think those are all in the cards. It's hard to say which one will happen. The only thing that I feel really comfortable about predicting right now is that a mainline Pokemon game will come out next year, and that I think they will bring in pretty much all of the Pokemon, especially considering the 25th anniversary, and that definitely a new Pokemon Snap will come out in the first half of the year. That's my prediction, that's what I'm thinking what's to come for Pokemon after the Crown Tundra DLC. But what do you guys think? What sort of Pokemon games do you think is coming out in 2021? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, everyone, this is Honest Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.